The wind screamed across the frozen battlefield. Snow covered everything, the broken machines, the blood, the dead bodies. Commander Ryan Walker moved slowly through the wreckage, his rifle in hand, his armor cracked. He was the only one left. From his unit, his breath turned to ice in the air. His legs felt heavy, but he kept walking. He had to survive. He saw movement ahead. Something crawling in the snow. At first, he thought it was another dying human. But as he got closer, he realized it wasn't human at all. A tall figure lay on her side, her silver skin covered in frost. Armor shattered, hair glowing faint. Blue, her hands trembled as she tried to push herself up. Then she collapsed again. Ryan raised his rifle instantly, aiming at her head. It was an alien Azalari warrior, the same species that had killed thousands of humans. He should shoot, but she didn't move. She just looked at him with wide, glowing eyes, full of fear, not anger, not hatred, just fear. Then, with great effort, she pushed herself to her knees. "Don't kill me, human," she said in a weak voice. "I'll warm your bed." Ryan froze. What did she just say? He blinked, trying to understand. Was she mocking him, playing some strange alien joke? Or was she serious? The alien's hands were shaking, her lips turning blue. She wasn't threatening, she was begging. Ryan looked around, no enemies in sight, only silence and snow. He lowered his rifle, but didn't relax. "Who are you?" he asked. "Why are you here?" She coughed and whispered, "My name is Calvara. I was left behind. Please. I don't want to die in the cold." Ryan had every reason to leave her. She was the enemy. But something about her didn't fit the stories he had been told. The Zalari were monsters, merciless, cold, perfect killers. But this one looked broken, scared, like someone who had seen too much pain, against all logic. He stepped forward and offered his hand. Kale stared at it for a moment, then slowly took it. Her skin was cold like ice, but her grip was gentle. He pulled her to her feet and supported her weight as she stumbled beside him. They moved toward an old abandoned bunker nearby. Half buried in snow, inside, it was dark and freezing. But better than the outside. Ryan lit a small emergency heater and gave her a thermal blanket. She wrapped herself in it, shivering silently. For a long time they said nothing. The wind howled outside like ghosts screaming in the night. Kale looked at the fire, her eyes distant, like she was remembering something painful. "I used to be a soldier," she finally said. "But they used us like tools." Ryan watched her carefully, still unsure if this was all an act. "Why should I believe you?" he asked. Kale smiled sadly. "You shouldn't," she replied. "But you didn't kill me." Ryan couldn't argue with that. He sat down across from her, keeping his rifle nearby. "You said you'd warm my bed," he said after a pause. "Why?" Kale looked at him, her eyes serious, not playful. "In my culture, warmth is not just body heat," she said softly. "It means safety, loyalty, survival. Offering warmth is how we surrender with dignity." Ryan had never heard that before. To him, it sounded like something ancient, something sacred. She wasn't offering herself like a prize. She was giving him her last hope. They sat in silence again, the fire crackling quietly. Ryan looked at her, not as an enemy, but as a person. She had scars on her arms, marks that looked like chains had once held her. Not a warrior by choice, but by force. Maybe they were more alike than he wanted to admit. Two survivors, abandoned by their own people, left to die in the snow, outside. The storm grew stronger, inside. The heat from the small fire began to fill the space. Kale's breathing slowed, her eyes closing gently. Ryan stayed awake, guarding the shelter, guarding her. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring. But he knew one thing. He couldn't let her die. Not yet. Not like this. Asterisk. The storm had passed. But the silence that followed felt heavier than the snow. Commander Ryan woke up before sunrise. The fire long dead. The cold creeping back in. Turned toward Kale, still curled under the blanket. Her breathing slow but steady. For a moment, He forgot she was an alien. She just looked tired, broken, and human in her pain. He moved quietly, preparing a ration bar and melting ice for water. Kale opened her eyes slowly, then sat up with a slight wince. "Still alive," she whispered, her voice dry. "I thought maybe you'd shoot me in my sleep." Ryan didn't smile, but his voice was calm. "Not today," he said, handing her the food and water. She accepted it without pride, eating in small bites, hands still shaking. Her armor clinked faintly as she moved. It was clearly damaged. But it wasn't just battle scars. There were deep scratches on the inside of the chest plate, like someone had tried to claw their way out. Ryan noticed, and Kale saw him looking. She slowly pulled open a piece of the broken armor near her shoulder, revealing skin. There were metal ports embedded in her flesh, still blinking faintly blue. "They use these to control us," she said. "Shock implants, command triggers. I wasn't just a soldier, I was a prisoner in my own body." Ryan clenched his jaw, unsure how to respond. This wasn't in any human briefing about the Zalari. They said the aliens were fearless warriors, born for war, without mercy. But Kale's truth was different and far more disturbing. "You were programmed?" he asked carefully. Kale nodded. "We were made in labs, trained from birth, conditioned to obey. If we disobeyed orders, pain. If we fled, pain. If we showed emotion, more pain." She touched the scars on her arms. "But I learned how to hide my thoughts," she whispered. "One day, I ran." Ryan looked at the cave wall, unsure what to believe. But his instincts, sharpened by years in war, told him she wasn't lying. Her fear was too real, her pain too raw. She wasn't trying to manipulate him, she was trying to survive. A sudden beep echoed through the cave. Kale froze, her eyes wide. Ryan looked at his wrist, device motion detected outside. Someone or something was out there. Kale's breath quickened, her body curling in on itself like a hunted animal. "No, no, not them, not again," she said, panic rising in her voice. Ryan moved to the cave entrance and peered outside through a small crack. In the distance, a flying drone hovered low, scanning the snow with a red beam. It was Zalari tech. "They're searching for you," Ryan said quietly. Kale trembled. "They'll bring me back. They'll erase everything in my mind. Make me kill again." Ryan looked at her, at the firelight flickering in her frightened eyes. "Then we don't let them find you," he said. "But if they do, I won't let them take you alive." She stared at him, surprised, then slowly nodded. "Thank you," she said. "But if I lose control, if they activate me, promise you'll stop me, no matter what." Ryan didn't respond right away. He didn't want to make that promise, but he understood what she meant. Sometimes, death was better than losing yourself. "All right," he said finally. "But we'll make sure it doesn't come to that." Kale took a deep breath and began removing more of her armor, piece by piece. Underneath the plating was not just skin, but complex symbols, glowing lines that pulsed with energy. Ryan leaned in, studying them. "What are those?" he asked. Kale's voice dropped to a whisper. "I don't know. They appeared after I escaped. I think there's something inside me, something older than even the Zalari." Suddenly, one of the symbols flared bright blue, lighting the cave for a moment. Kale gasped and grabbed her head, groaning in pain. Ryan rushed to her side, holding her shoulders as she trembled. "Kale, what's happening?" "I don't know," she cried. "It's waking up. Something is waking up inside me." Her body shook violently, and her eyes turned fully blue for a second. Then it stopped. Just as quickly, she collapsed into his arms, breathing hard, her voice barely a whisper. "It's not just me they're hunting, Ryan. They're afraid of what I might become." Ryan looked at her, heart pounding. The pieces were starting to make sense. She wasn't just a fugitive or a weapon. She was a key to something big, something dangerous, and maybe something that could change the war forever. The cave had gone quiet again, but Ryan couldn't sleep. Kale was resting nearby, her face pale, her skin glowing faintly in the dark. Those strange blue symbols still pulsed softly under her skin, like something alive. He had seen many things in this war, but nothing like this. He sat with his rifle in hand, watching the entrance, thinking. The cold wasn't what chilled him now, it was the unknown. What had they awakened inside her? And could it be controlled? Kale stirred in her sleep, her lips moving without sound. Then her body jerked suddenly. Her eyes flew open, bright blue and burning like fire. Ryan stood up quickly. "Kale?" he said, stepping closer, but she didn't respond. She wasn't. Seeing him, she spoke in a different voice, not her usual soft tone, but deep, strange, and layered, like multiple voices speaking through her. "Protocol breach detected," the voice said. "Initiating lockdown." Ryan moved to her side, shaking her. "Kale." "Snap out of it," he said, panic rising, but she didn't move. Her body lifted slightly off the ground, hovering in place, the symbols on her skin glowing brighter. Then, just as fast, she dropped back to the ground, gasping. Her eyes returned to normal, and she curled into a ball, breathing fast. Ryan knelt beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "It's okay," he said. "You're back." Kale looked at him with tears in her eyes. "I saw something," she whispered. Place, metal walls, red lights. Voices I didn't know. They were watching me, I think. I think there's something inside me that was never mine." Ryan helped her sit up. "You're not alone," he said. "We'll figure it out." But deep down, he was worried. What if the enemy wasn't out there anymore? What if it had already entered Kale? Later that day, Ryan found an old medical scanner in the ruins of a supply crate. He hooked it up and ran a scan on Kale. As the machine hummed, it displayed strange energy readings inside her body signals, unlike anything human. Alien tech, yes, but older, more advanced, maybe even ancient. Kale watched the screen, then whispered, "My people use tech from another race. They called them the Makers. Even the Zalari don't fully understand it." Ryan looked at the readings. Something inside her was growing stronger. "I think you're carrying their design," he said slowly, "and it's waking up." Kale turned away, fear in her eyes. "If it wakes up fully," she said, "will I still be me? Or just another weapon they can use?" Ryan didn't have the answer. That night, Kale sat near the fire, staring into the flames. Ryan sat beside her, breaking the silence. "Back on Earth," he said, "there's a story about a girl who carried a dragon inside her. She thought it was a curse, but in the end, it became her greatest strength." Kale gave a soft, bitter laugh. "Do I look like a dragon girl to you?" she asked. Ryan looked at her carefully. "No," he said. "You look like someone trying very hard not to fall apart." That made her go quiet, but she didn't turn away. She just sat closer, her shoulder touching his. It wasn't romantic. It was something deeper. Two broken people, trying to keep each other together. Suddenly, a sound echoed through the cave, metal clicking, soft footsteps. Ryan raised his rifle. Kale stood quickly, her body alert. Then a figure appeared at the entrance, tall, armored, glowing red eyes. It wasn't human, and it wasn't Solari either. It was something else. Kale gasped. "Makers," she whispered. "No. It's a watcher." The figure raised a hand and Kale froze, unable to move. The symbols on her skin lit up fully, and her body began shaking. Ryan aimed his rifle and shouted, "Let her go!" But the watcher didn't speak. It only looked at Kale, as if scanning her. Then it vanished into light, gone in a flash, like a ghost. Kale collapsed, Ryan catching her before she hit the ground. She was crying now, not from pain, but fear. "I'm not supposed to exist," she whispered. "They're coming for me, and if they catch me, they'll erase me." Ryan held her tight. "Not while I'm still breathing," he said, but in his mind, a terrifying thought echoed. The enemy wasn't just using Kale. They had put something inside her, and it was waking up. Not just technology, but a mind, something ancient, something watching, and it had just found them. Asterisk, the ice storm had passed, but something inside Kale still hadn't settled. She stared at the walls of the cave. Barely blinking, her hands clenched, Ryan watched her carefully. Not sure what to say. The way she had frozen when that machine appeared, the Watcher, it wasn't just fear. It was control. They needed to move, and fast. Ryan packed supplies into a small bag while Kale sat in silence. "You said that thing was a Watcher," he finally asked. "What does it watch for?" Kale looked up slowly, her voice low. "Changes," she whispered. "Deviations in the Maker's design. When someone becomes something they weren't meant to be, they come." Ryan didn't fully understand, but he knew enough. Kale wasn't just some escaped warrior. She was something the Makers had touched. Maybe changed, maybe broken, and now, whatever they were, they had noticed she was waking up. They left the cave before sunrise, hiking through the snow toward the canyon cliffs. Kale said she remembered an old structure there, half-buried, ancient even to her people. "If I'm changing," she said, "maybe the answers are there." Climb was hard, the wind sharp as knives, but eventually they reached a ridge. And Kale pointed down. There, beneath layers of ice, was a strange shaped black stone, glowing faintly blue, not built like human or Zalari tech, but something older. They climbed down carefully and found a sealed entrance covered in ice. Kale placed her hand on the surface, and the door reacted. It melted open slowly, revealing a long dark tunnel. Inside, the air was warm, almost alive. The walls were covered in alien symbols, the same kind that now glowed on Kale's skin. Ryan walked beside her, weapon ready, but quiet. Something about this place didn't feel like a trap. It felt like a memory, a sleeping one, in the center of the chamber. They found a circular platform with carvings all around. Kale stepped onto it without fear. The floor lit up beneath her, and she gasped as visions flooded her mind. Flashes of stars, machines, war, and voices calling her name, but not her own voice. A different version of her, one she didn't recognize. Ryan rushed forward and grabbed her hand, grounding her. Her eyes flickered, then returned to normal. She fell to her knees, gasping for air. "I saw myself," she whispered. "But not me." She was stronger, colder. Like a queen of machines, Ryan knelt beside her. "You're not her," he said softly. "You're you." She looked at him, eyes trembling. "Then why do I feel like I'm becoming her?" She asked, "Like I'm losing what little I have left." Ryan didn't speak for a moment. Instead, he did something unexpected. He reached out and took her hand. Warmth passed between them, not just body heat, but something real. "You haven't lost yourself," he said. "You chose to run. You chose not to be a weapon. That means something." Kale didn't pull away. She didn't flinch. She just held his hand tighter. Her fingers cold, but her grip steady. She had trusted no one in years, but something about Ryan felt different, not because he saved her, but because he saw her for who she really was. They sat in silence for a while, surrounded by glowing symbols and strange machines. Ryan leaned back against the wall, Kale beside him. The war, the fear, the unknown, it all faded for a few minutes. Only the sound of her breathing, steady and soft, reminded him she was still with him, still fighting to stay herself. Later, they discovered a hidden panel behind the altar in the chamber. Inside was a recording, ancient and flickering. It showed a being not human, not Zalari tall, metallic, with wings made of energy. The prototypes must not bond. It said, "If emotion stabilizes them, control will fail." Kale turned to Ryan, realization in her eyes. "They didn't want us to feel," she whispered, "because love breaks the code." Ryan stared at the message, then at her. "Then we just became their worst nightmare," he said. Kale laughed softly for the first time. A real laugh, not out of joy but out of rebellion. A spark had formed between them. Not just survival, not just teamwork, but something deeper. And the machines watching from afar? They had just realized the fire they tried to control was now burning free. The light inside the ancient chamber dimmed. Ryan and Kale stood close, surrounded by silence. But deep inside Kale's mind, something was changing. She didn't say it out loud, but she felt it. A quiet voice whispering, not in words, but in pulses of thought. It was waking again. They left the ruins and climbed back to the surface. The sky above was turning gray, another storm coming. "We need to reach higher ground," Ryan said. "There's an old comm station up there. If I can send a signal, the human fleet might pick it up." Kale didn't answer right away. Her eyes were distant, watching the snowy horizon. She nodded slowly, then followed him without a word. They reached the station at dusk. It was old and broken, buried in ice, but Ryan managed to restart part of the system. He activated a beacon short range, but it was all they had. Then they waited, surrounded by cold and silence. Hours passed, then the signal came. Ryan's wrist device buzzed. "Commander Walker. This is Lieutenant Briggs. We received your beacon. Extraction ship inbound. ETA 6 hours. Relief washed over him. We're going home," he told Kale with a smile, but her face didn't change. She looked down at the snow, her hands clenched tightly. "Home," she said quietly. "I don't know if I have one anymore." Ryan reached out to her. "You'll be safe," he said. "You'll have a new start." Kale smiled faintly, but there was sadness in her eyes. That night, she stood alone by the cliff's edge, staring at the stars. Inside her mind, the voice returned stronger now, clearer. It wasn't words, it was a command. Return to the core, secure the key, eliminate the variable. She fell to her knees, gripping her head. "No," she whispered. "I'm not yours anymore." But the symbols on her skin lit up again. Burning bright blue, her body jerked slightly, her breath sharp and forced. And then she stood still, silent, her face expressionless. At sunrise, Ryan woke to find her gone. Her tracks led away from the station, straight toward the ridge. He followed them quickly, calling her name. "Kale, where are you?" Then he saw the ship. It wasn't human. It was a Zalari scout ship hovering low, cloaked in shadow, and standing in front of it Kale, surrounded by armored alien soldiers. "Kale!" Ryan shouted, raising his weapon. She turned slowly, her eyes glowing, not afraid, not hurt, but empty, like a different person now. One of the Zalari stepped forward, tall and cold, his armor shining black. "She returned to us willingly," he said. "The Maker's signal brought her back." Ryan's heart dropped. "No," he whispered, "that's not her." Kale looked at him, her face calm. "I told you," she said in a flat voice. "If they found me, I'd become something else." She walked forward slowly. "Leave now," she said. "If you stay, they'll kill you." Ryan lowered his gun, stunned. "We trusted each other," he said. "We fought side by side." Kale flinched, just slightly, as if something inside her cracked. "I remember," she said softly. "And that's what makes this harder." Suddenly, a drone flew overhead, scanning Ryan with a red beam. He ducked and rolled behind a rock, bullets tearing the ground beside him. He fired back, taking down one of the guards. But there were too many. He was forced to retreat into the trees, breath shaking, heart pounding. Behind him, Kale stood still, not chasing him, not helping, just watching. The signal on his wrist buzzed again. "Commander Walker, your extraction is delayed. Hostile activity in the zone." Ryan threw the device away in anger. She had left him. No, she had been taken from him. Piece by piece. Back at the Zalari ship, Kale sat inside a sealed chamber. Wires connected to her skin, the voice in her mind now constant, but deep beneath it, a small spark still burned. She remembered Ryan's voice, his hand holding hers. The warmth by the fire. She remembered the words. "You chose not to be a weapon." A tear slid down her cheek. She wiped it away before anyone saw. Her body was not hers anymore, but her soul? Still fighting, still his asterisk. Ryan stood in the dark forest, snow falling around him like ashes. He could still see the Zalari ship glowing in the distance. Inside that ship was Kale, no longer free, no longer herself, and he couldn't walk away. tightened his grip on his rifle and checked the last EMP charge on his belt. He had no backup, no command, and no time. But none of that mattered. He had made her a promise. "I'll stop you, if I have to," he whispered to himself. "But I'm not leaving you behind." Inside the ship, Kale sat in a white chamber, wires running through her back and chest. Machines whispered around her, reading her thoughts. Controlling her nerves, her eyes were half open, glowing softly in her mind. Two forces battled her memories and the voice of the Makers. Cold, logical, merciless. "Eliminate the human, secure the signal," the voice said. Again and again, but her memory fought back, the cave fire, the warmth of his hand, his words, "You're not a weapon." Suddenly, her eyes snapped fully open, and the machines around her blinked red. Subject resisting integration. One of them said. Her heart pounded. She was still inside, still fighting, but she couldn't break free alone. Ryan reached the ship's edge using the shadows for cover. He climbed onto a cargo ramp, evading the guards. Every hallway was cold and silent, glowing with blue light. He had studied Zilari architecture in war school, but this was different. This ship felt alive, like it was watching him. He planted the EMP near the power core and moved forward. If he timed it right, he could cut the power just long enough to reach Kale. But if he was too late, he didn't finish the thought. In the control chamber, the commander stood before a tall monitor. Kale's brainwaves danced on the screen, unstable, unpredictable. "She's corrupted," the commander said. "Her bond with the human must be severed." They activated the failsafe, a lethal neural shock. Kale screamed loud and raw, her body shaking against the restraints. But still, she didn't break. Ryan heard the scream, and it drove him forward faster. He kicked open the chamber door just as the shockwave hit again. Kale lay limp, her eyes dimming. "No!" Ryan shouted, running to her side, pulling wires from her back. The guards stormed in. He fired quickly, taking two down, shielding her with his body. The EMP detonated, and the lights across the ship flickered violently. Control systems failed. Alarms blared. Kale opened her eyes slowly, her voice weak. "Ryan, you came." "I said I wouldn't leave you," he replied, lifting her into his arms. They ran together through the flickering corridors. Kale leaned on him, her strength returning with every step. The voice in her mind was still there, but quieter now, drowning beneath the sound of her heartbeat and his. They reached the hangar bay, but a watcher blocked the exit, the same glowing figure from before. It raised a hand, and Kale froze mid-step, her legs locking up. "I can't move," she said. "It's still inside me." Ryan stepped forward, placing himself between Kale and the watcher. "You don't control her anymore," he said. "She's not yours." The watcher moved its hand again, sending a wave of blue energy. Ryan fired a pulse grenade, blasting its form apart for a few seconds. In that moment, Kale fell to her knees, gasping. "The core," she said suddenly. "It's inside me. I can stop it. But I might not survive." Ryan knelt beside her, his voice shaking. "There has to be another way." Kale looked into his eyes. "I was made to be a weapon," she said. "But you made me feel human. Don't let them take that away." She pressed her hand to his chest, and for a moment, the glowing symbols spread onto his armor. The lights of the ship went wild, flickering, crashing, then fading completely. The core had collapsed. The watcher vanished into dust, the ship crumbling around them. Ryan grabbed Kale and ran toward the escape pod, carrying her as the walls caved in. They launched into the sky just as the ship exploded behind them. Fire lit the clouds, and silence followed. Inside the pod, Kale lay in his arms, her eyes half closed. "I'm still me," she whispered. "Right?" Ryan held her close, brushing her hair gently. "You're more than you ever were," he said, "and I'm not letting go." She smiled, weak but real. And for the first time, the voice in her mind went quiet. The escape pod touched down in a quiet valley of snow. Smoke drifted from the metal shell, but it held. Inside, Ryan opened the hatch slowly. the cold air rushing in. He looked down at Kale, still unconscious in his arms, her skin pale, her breathing faint. He stepped into the snow, holding her close. No enemy chased them, no ship followed. The war for now was far away. But he wasn't thinking about battles anymore. He was thinking about her. He built a fire using broken pieces of the pod's frame. The flames rose soft and gentle, crackling in the stillness. He placed Kale near the warmth, wrapping her in his jacket. Then he waited, watching her chest rise and fall with every breath, waiting for her to open her eyes. Hours passed, the stars began to shine. Then finally Kale stirred, her hand twitching slightly, her eyes opened. Slowly, the blue glow gone, replaced by something softer, something more human. "Am I dreaming?" she asked, her voice quiet. Ryan shook his head with a small smile. "Not this time," he said. "You made it." She sat up with effort, looking around at the frozen valley. "We're alive," she whispered. "They're gone," Ryan nodded. Staring into the fire, "They tried to turn you into a weapon," he said, "but you chose to feel instead. That saved both of us." Kale looked at him, and for the first time her lips curved into a true smile. "I thought emotions were a weakness," she said, "but now I see their power." The night was silent around them, the stars endless above. For a long time, they said nothing. They just sat beside each other, shoulder to shoulder, heartbeats slow and steady. Kale leaned her head on his shoulder, eyes closed. "I used to think warmth meant survival," she whispered. "But now, I think it means something else." Ryan looked at her, the firelight dancing in her silver hair. "What does it mean now?" he asked. She took a deep breath, her voice soft as snow. "It means safety," she said. "It means being seen. It means you." Ryan didn't answer right away. He didn't need to. He reached for her hand, and she held it tightly. No fear left in her fingers, only truth. When morning came, the human rescue team arrived. They were stunned to see Kale alive, sitting beside Ryan like an equal, not a prisoner, not an enemy. Some wanted her detained, questioned, controlled, but Ryan stood between them, his voice strong. "She's not the threat," he said. "She's the reason I'm still breathing." Kale didn't speak as the team debated. She simply walked to the edge of the cliff and looked out at the snowy world. "I will answer your questions," she said calmly, "but not in chains. I fought too hard to be free." The commander nodded slowly, lowering his weapon. "Then tell us your story," he said. "All of it." And she did. Weeks passed. Kale was granted protection under the Earth Alliance. Ryan stayed by her side during the questions, the tests, the long days of silence. He knew she had changed, but not into something else, into someone stronger. They found a place far from the war, a quiet station near the mountains. There, the snow fell gently each night, and the fire never went out. One evening, Ryan came inside holding wood for the fire. Kale stood by the window, looking at the stars. He placed a blanket over her shoulders, and she turned to him with a soft smile. "Still cold?" he asked. She leaned into him, her voice warm and sure. "Not anymore." And as they stood there in silence, the past behind them, the future unknown, one thing was certain: she was no longer a weapon. She was no longer alone. She was home.